Happy summer solstice! At this time of year when the sun is reached its zenith in the sky, you are feeling warm, you are feeling charming, magnetic, and you're looking forward to building something new and fresh in the second half of the year, something that you believe will bring you fulfillment and make all your wishes and dreams come true. Something maybe career related, maybe home, hearth, family, something that's gonna move you closer to the stability that you seek. But there's something in your way. There's something incomplete, inconclusive, uncertain. There's some kind of work you still need to do to realize that Nine of Cups. So let's get into it. So the most important question, and the one I want to start with, is getting some more context on the reversed world card here. So the first thing that's showing itself is the Hierophant. What kind of work is undone? The spiritual work is what it's looking like. And that spiritual work might have something to do with learning how to be a good partner, I would say. Learning how to have a balanced and reciprocal relationship with whoever you're doing business with, whoever you're dealing with, whether it's a romantic relationship, a family relationship, a business relationship, whatever it is. The Five of Swords is kind of a tendency, I would say, of needing to always be right, needing to always win no matter what the stakes are, right? Like he won, but he's lost friends here. You know what I mean? It seems hardly worth it. There's a lot of strife and pain in this card. And so I think the spiritual work that is as yet undone here is, yeah, something about clearing up the tension in your partnerships, opening up more clear lines of communication, of giving and receiving, really opening those up or tightening those up as the case may be. And you definitely have it in you. I mean, if the energy that you're channeling at this time is the Queen of Wands, she's the perfect person to do that. She exudes this kind of warmth and caring, and she's, the queen of the hearth, the home, the fire that that we cook over, to nourish our bodies and nourish the bodies of our loved ones. So whether it's literal, maybe that's how you're going to strengthen those alliances, let's call them, by literally cooking and bringing food to your loved ones, to your partners. You could try that. If you're not a cook, that's okay. Take it figuratively. Take that advice figuratively. I'd like to see also what these other three cards are here that fell out. The Star reversed, Seven of Cups upright, and Death reversed. What I think this is a warning, a caution, and it also relates back to the world reversed. It's a caution against believing that the work is done. Because the Star has to do with not only hope in the future, but a hope that is based on our real capacity to do the work, to alchemize our emotional and mental struggles into something more beautiful on the other side. And so if we have falsely convinced ourselves that that work is done and that payoff that we hope to see is already ours and is already in our hands, we might not make the very necessary changes that we, in fact, still do need to make, that are still, as of yet, undone. In other words, just because we want it to be doesn't mean that it is. Sometimes, as magical people, it is a little too easy to believe that. We end our prayer, so mote it be, and I mean, part of prayer and manifestation is believing that so mote it be, and then it will be. That's part of it, but part of it also is taking small steps every day in the direction of that reality. And so if we only do one and not the other, we're not fulfilling our end of the bargain. We're not giving the universe anything to work with. We're making it impossible for the universe, our spirit guides, our guardian angels to fulfill their end of the bargain. So do not kid yourself. There's still a lot of hard work ahead of you, okay? If you've been praying for a miracle, you can continue to believe in that, but you also need to live that reality. And the only way to live that reality is to become that person. And you have to put the effort in to become that person. Like I said, what that's going to look like for you is doing that real spiritual and relational work. You might have to learn to bite your tongue. You might need to learn that not everything you think always has to be said. You might need to learn that you're not always right. No one is. You might need to learn that it's better to be happy than right. Maybe you are right, but does it matter? Does it matter in this context? You can take a second to ask yourself that, especially if you're dealing with someone who's really important to you for whatever reason. If it's a loved one, or like I said, maybe somebody who's presenting you with an opportunity that you really need and really want. Sometimes it is okay to let someone else be wrong. I completely understand that impulse to like correct the record, but is it really worth it? Stop and ask yourself that. If it's more important to sustain that meaningful connection, or if it's more important to correct the record. And that doesn't mean letting someone live in like a dangerous untruth. There are times where it is important to correct the record, but there are times when it doesn't matter at all. Okay. So you're going to have to learn how to discern those times. That's real work on your character that you need to do. That's what's unfinished right now. But let's talk about this Ace of Pentacles and this Nine of Cups as well, while we're at it. Give us more information on, I suppose, the new growth that we're looking for, that we're wishing for at this time. We're going to do the work. To what end? What's motivating us to change, to grow, to become people of stronger character? It looks like there's a lot of negative emotions. Stress, burnout, hopelessness, disalignment, and we're feeling off balance. These are the feelings that are motivating us to feel like we absolutely need some kind of new beginning in our lives. And it's okay then to wish for the best, for your wildest dreams. I think you do have to do that, like I said. It's okay to shoot for the stars. We do have to take those practical steps day by day to get there. But I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying to sell yourself short. I do want you to dream big. But yeah, this is a lot to sort through. A lot of a pretty big spiritual load, a very heavy mental load, grief, fear, discombobulation. I mean, Temperance and the Star are very related cards. Again, it's about doing that alchemy between the mental and the emotional, sorting yourself out, balancing out your emotions in your physical body, finding balance in relationships, finding a work-life balance, a balance in your home life. This is all feeling thrown off to you right now. So you're having a hard time seeing the way here, the way to make this dream a reality. But I think it's interesting that I'm not seeing in these 4 cards any pentacles or cups. So there's a feeling, like I said, of sort of like a spiritual burnout and like a mental stress and a mental discombobulation. But I wonder if a little more objectively we can look on the bright side, because objectively I'm not seeing like, the 5 of Pentacles indicating like a severe lack of resources. I'm not seeing the 5 of Cups, for example, indicating that you are lacking in those emotional and relational resources. So yeah, this is a sort of psychological suffering that you're dealing with right now, the answer to which I think also has to be, well, I was going to say also has to be psychological somewhere in your psyche, but that's not enough. I think the Temperance card shows us also that part of that psychological healing is always physical. You can put yourself in a better mental state by, for example, going for a walk, engaging in your favorite kind of exercise, movement, whatever it may be, that has physical effects on your psychology. Science has proved that. Eating well makes you feel better mentally and emotionally. So these things are all intertwined. And I suppose the best advice I can give you based on these cards is to do those things physically for yourself that are going to increase your psychological well-being, to put you in a better position to realize and cultivate this new dream, to make it a reality, to conclude what needs to be concluded, to do the work, to do the unfinished work, to close one chapter and open another. We have the King of Wands and the 8 of Wands reversed. It might be slower than you'd like, the progress here, but there definitely is progress. We see moving from the Queen of Wands to the King of Wands. The movement from the Queen of Wands to the King of Wands, I would describe it as sort of a fulfillment of will, a realization of the willpower. The Queen of Wands, please forgive me, but I would say is a bit more of a people pleaser. She is strong. She is mama. She is the hearth witch, I'm not saying she's a pushover by any means. I'm not saying that, but she does innately and inherently have this concern for others around her. And the king also does. The King of Wands also has a concern for the people around him. But what's interesting is, like I said, it's just more of a harnessing of a will. So the energy of the King of Wands, it has to do with doing what's right for everyone, but that might not always mean sitting down and having a conversation and finding out how people feel and what they believe they need. And it's just a little less bogged down in the emotional work and a little more focused on the external realization of what we know in our heart to be the highest good, if that makes sense. I would say, in other words, the Queen of Wands is about doing that exploratory work to really ground an understanding of our people and sort of our emotional ecosystem. The King is the building that is built upon that foundation. So that's where we're wanting to get to. That's a very strong position. But that's what's going to be needed to realize the growth of our Ace of Pentacles here. So the movement from the Queen of Wands to the King of Wands, though slow, will be steady, and it will be realized through this path of alchemizing these negative feelings of burnout and grief and disalignment and imbalance, digging into those, digging deep into those, not avoiding them, but facing them head on, using our tools, taking baby steps day by day. I'm sure you've heard the phrase chop wood, carry water. By focusing on the little things we have to do day to day to take care of ourselves and others in our household or in our orbit, that's how we're slowly going to find a new balance, a new homeostasis, which is going to correct that psychological discombobulation and help us close this chapter and open a new one. So if there's one single piece of advice that these cards are offering for the rest of the year, it's chop wood, carry water. Don't even get bogged down by looking too far ahead. Put one foot in front of the other, make breakfast, wash dishes, walk the dog, feed the cat, call your mom. And day by day, you'll start to feel a little better. And the view of your new reality will become clearer and clearer. And the rain clouds that may seem permanent to you now will start to clear up. And something new and beautiful will dawn.